I booked a session and had my first two in-person breathwork and meditation experiences. I left my body from a spirit perspective, and I was able to look down at my physical body and know that I wasn't the vessel laying on the ground. I was the thing observing it. That was uh, obviously a very huge shift in perspective for me.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders who are helping our world awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you a powerful conversation with Robert Hudson, who is a combat veteran and Purple Heart recipient who now serves as an intergalactic shaman with a mission to end human suffering. Now, in this conversation with Robert, he shares with us how he spent well over a decade trying to heal himself from military trauma, PTSD, and even a brain injury utilizing traditional Western medicine, aka pills. And it just wasn't working for him. And he shares with us how he experienced a breathwork session that not only brought healing into his life, but woke him up and provided him with a remembrance of his intergalactic ancestry. And now he serves, as I mentioned, as an intergalactic shaman, utilizing breath work, plant medicine, and channeling in order to help his clients. He shares with great passion and determination of his own calling to end human suffering on our planet. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast. Click subscribe, leave a rating or a review. That's an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these incredible interviews that we are releasing each and every week. All right, let's dive into this conversation with Robert Hudson. Well, Robert, it is great to be with you. Thanks so much for taking time to connect with us today.
Thank you, David. It's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to hear about your story of awakening to consciousness, mindfulness, spirituality. Did you grow up in a home that had some sort of spirituality or faith? And maybe tell us where you grew up as well.
Yeah, not at all. I grew up in a place called Arlington, Texas. Anybody familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area? It's right between Dallas and Fort Worth. It's like that halfway point. Yeah, I grew up there. It was actually a pretty standard childhood, you know. I grew up playing outside and playing sports, and my dad worked like, you know, call it two, three, four jobs sometimes, just trying to take care of us. He was a single father, so didn't have an opportunity to be around as much. You know, taught us what he could. He gave us the basics, you know, be able to, you know, when you shake someone's hand, look them in the eye. When you say something, people need to trust that you're going to do it, things like that. But he was just so busy often trying to put food on the table and pay the bills that there wasn't really a whole lot of college structure in the home outside of making sure we brought good grades home and things like that. So, yeah, not a lot of actually zero what we would call religion
Yeah.
at all in my home growing up. In fact, didn't even get my first taste of that at all until I was a full blown adult.
And when was that? How did that come into your life?
The first time was when I was in the Army, and it happened during boot camp. It was just something where on Sundays they let people go to church, and it was kind of like a breakaway and like a break where you didn't have somebody in your face all the time.
Yeah.
And so you got this like hour break from that, and sometimes a little longer. So I just started going, and there's a saying in the military: "There's no atheists in foxholes." So I tried to make it a, I tried to make it a thing, but it was something that I only connected with logically. It was nothing I ever felt, I never experienced. It was I was trying to connect with it with my brain
hmm
for the longest time, which is why it never really kind of gripped me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at what point did that begin to open your heart up and your spirit up?
Yeah, breath work. was when it kind of started, and that's when it separated from the what I would call the dogmatic religion
Hmm.
portion of it to like the first time I did breath work and got into a really deep meditative state was the first time I was able to know that I was disconnected from my spirit, and I felt it, and I knew my body and spirit were not connected and not aligned. And so that really was a very powerful experience for me. It is for a lot of people I've seen since I've started this work. It's very powerful when, and I think that's probably because most people are going about their day to day lives not knowing that they have a soul. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know it. And so a large portion of the population, they're running around conducting themselves as if they don't have a soul.
Hmm.
And when you feel it and you experience that for the first time, and when you fall into that knowing that you have a soul, that holy trinity, the mind body spirit, really is three different things. um, it's earth shattering, and it was for me, and that's really where my awakening started, was the first time I did breath work.
So, what made you want to do breath work? I teach breath work on a weekly basis. So, there's lots of people that come, and, there's all different reasons. Sometimes it's a friend brought them, but oftentimes it's they're in a dark place in life having challenges. What led you to that moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was getting out of the army, I was medically retired, so I got injured in combat. uh, Came home, had my surgeries, and went in front of a medical review board, and they said you're done, and sent me home. And I struggled for my first several years, but something that I stuck with for quite a while was mental health treatment. And so, going to therapy, I was pretty consistent with it for, call it, a decade, on top of
Wow.
being extremely heavily medicated by the VA. I mean, at different points, I was on up to six different medications from the VA. That's
So, you
kind
were
of
dealing with
their
PTSD,
mhm.
other experiences?
Correct. Yeah. I was discharged for traumatic brain injury and PTSD were the main. There's other stuff, but those were like the heavy hitters.
Hmm.
And the VA very much believes in pharmaceuticals and pills. And like I said, at different points, I was on up to six different medications, and it just got to a point where the therapy and the medicine just, I felt like a zombie, and I wasn't seeing real progress in my relationships. And I deeply desire authentic connection with people. And I was unable to do that for a very long period of time. And it just, after over a decade of it, I needed something else. I wanted to try something else. I didn't quite know what that was. Um, but I knew I needed to try something else. The pills and the medication just were not working. And when I say not working, I don't mean that like some areas got better and some areas didn't. It just, across the board, things were not getting better, but I was medicated into submission almost.
Mm.
So it was almost like the only reason things got better is the medicine forced me to withdraw and numbed me down. And I just didn't like feeling like that. I remembered what it felt like when I was in my mid 20s and in the army, and thriving physically, and that energy, that vitality of life. I remember that feeling, and I couldn't get that back. That was very frustrating for me. And so it just finally got to a time when I was sitting in my chair and I said, I've got to figure something else out. I've got to do something different, because just addressing the mind that's not working, and how prophetic those words ended up being, is what I really needed to do was get outside of my mind and reconnect with my spirit. And so the day I was sitting in my chair telling myself this, I've got to do something different, is the day I got a phone call from another Army veteran who had just left a practitioner's house in Austin, saying, "Oh, I just done breath work and meditation for the first time." And he was using words I'd never heard him use. He was talking about the universe and spirit and love and all these things that sounded odd to be coming from this person. And so I said, roll the dice. I'll give it a shot. And at the time, I lived in the DFW area still, and I booked a session for that weekend, two sessions actually. I drove down. and had my first two in-person breathwork and meditation experiences. And those were the kind of the fulcrum for where we are today. That's where it all started.
What did you feel? What did you experience? What happened to you?
Yeah. I I left my body from a spirit perspective, and I was able to look down at my physical body and know that I wasn't the vessel laying on the ground. I was the thing observing it. That was uh, obviously a very huge shift in perspective for me. And so that was when I again fell into knowing that, oh, I do have a soul. And so I used to say that I was a human and that you could have spiritual experiences as a human. And then after that first session, I knew that I was actually a spirit having a human experience,
Mm.
not the other way around. And
Mhm.
so that the first thing I said to uh, the person who was facilitating for me when I came out of it was, oh, my definition of love just changed. I had said I love you to a lot of people in my life. I'd said it to my parents. I'd said it to girlfriends. I'd said it to really close friends, guys I served with. In that moment, I knew that what I was saying to them and what I meant when I said it was not what I just felt in that experience that I just had.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so you went through a couple of sessions that weekend. What then began to unfold in your life?
Yeah, it was this work is a magnet, right? And magnet can do one of two things. A magnet can attract, but a magnet can also repel. And I see that now often is somebody experiences this and they run as fast as they can in the opposite direction, right? Because it's too scary. It can't possibly be what it is. Those sorts of things. And um, for me, it was sorry, we're gonna have to cut here and edit this out. What was your
That's okay.
question? What was your
So what
question?
began after that weekend and you had these
What
2
started
experiences,
happening? Yep,
what
got it,
began to
got it.
unfold for
Okay.
you?
Yeah, it was, I often described my brain as a Google browser with 1,000 tabs open. And when I got to experience that moments of no thought, quiet peace, I started really seeking that. And it was not very difficult for me to wake up every morning and do an hour-long session of breath work, which put me into a deep meditative state. And then I'd breathe for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then I would meditate for about 20 or 30 minutes. And it was about an hour every morning. And what in the initial part, the first year and a half, was just me learning and understanding and getting a shift in perspective on a lot of things and starting to have different conversations with people and starting to really analyze my environment and who I'm around. And honestly, a lot of curiosity and reevaluating a lot of deeply held views I thought that I had. Some of them, a few of them were reinforced, but a lot of them forced me to reevaluate how I felt about certain things. I mean, you go back and look at just if you look at my social media from 2020 until today, you would think that that was 20 years of how different things are from just 3 or 4 years ago to what they are today. So it's just been a path, and that was kind of the path of about the first year and a half until my first channeling experience, which was about 19 months after the first time I did breath work. So there was about a year and a half of just a lot of curiosity, um, peace, and trying to kind of figure out what it all meant that, oh, I actually do have a soul. And I'm actually here having a human experience. That's not something that my person didn't understand that right away. It didn't click right away. It was something that I had to kind of slowly over time begin to understand. And I think once my person understood that is when the first channeling experience happened.
What was it? What were the surroundings of that? Were medicine involved? Were you meditating? Were there other people there? What happened?
Yeah, it was actually a funny story. It was Father's Day 2 years ago was when the first time I channeled. And I have a pretty big family. I'm one of seven. I have six brothers and sisters. Um, all of us, all the kids, all my nieces and nephews, all of us rented this huge lake house in the Ozarks in Missouri for Father's Day that year. And I drove from Florida, where I was living at the time, all the way up to Missouri for the Ozarks. And yeah, obviously I brought some plant medicine with me. I was going to the Ozarks, this beautiful, beautiful, over 1,000 miles of shoreline. I wanted to have some plant medicine with me, so I brought some with me. I was with my family, and so there were a lot of people in the house. I mean, call it 20. It was a very large house, obviously. And the first time it happened, it was really late at night. Everyone had gone to sleep, and I was kind of a late due to my job. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. And so I didn't get a room. I slept on the pull-out bed in what you would call the basement. It was the bottom floor that led down to the water, while everybody else was upstairs. I was the only person on the entire floor. I went to bed, and I'm not quite sure if I fell asleep or fell right into this experience. I'm not 100% certain about that. And I thought I was dreaming. And when I first was aware and could think and all that, I thought I was dreaming. And they made it very like abundantly clear that I wasn't dreaming. They stood me up and like were controlling my body and walked me over to a clock and made me tell them what time it was. They made me open the fridge and feel something cold, walk outside and put my feet in the water so I could feel water. And they're like, if you were dreaming, you couldn't be doing these things. And then bring me back inside and start. I have a note in my phone still to this day where they were allowing me to write stuff down and take notes so I could talk to my person about it the next day. And there were some things they wouldn't let me write. I kept, I was, it's a very unique experience the first time you are not in control of your own body. And
Oh,
that
I
happened.
know. I know.
Yeah, yeah. And so that happened. There was if you want to hear this really funny part of it where I was convinced I was dreaming. Even after all these things, they laid me back on the couch and I was convinced I was dreaming. And back when I was in, I think, high school, there was this song by NSYNC that came out called Bye Bye Bye. It was a worldwide hit, but there's a music video from there where they're on puppet strings being controlled by this like giant being.
Mhm.
And I thought of that whenever they were telling me, like, we have control of your body. For some reason, that thought, that image popped into my head. So they put me into that same position that those, like, Justin Timberlake was in the
Yeah.
video and started playing with me and showing us, like, look, you're on puppet strings. And they were like, not to be, it was fun. I was laughing. They were laughing. Like,
Was your
they were
family
using
watching
some,
that?
no, that's the I said, "What if somebody comes down here and sees us?" And they said, "We're not letting anybody come down here. No one's gonna catch us. We're good." Like, they were very clear that no one was gonna see what was happening, that it was between them and me, and that was it. And I never felt afraid. The first thing they said whenever I was, like, consciously, able to, like, ask a question or think something because they do communicate telepathically, so there was nothing everything I thought they responded to, everything I said they responded to, everything I wrote down they responded to. It was a very unique experience for sure, and, it went on for quite some time as well. I think in Earth time, it was probably around 90 minutes that this went on.
And your
Yeah.
family, what what did they say?
Nothing. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone. I told no one about that story for until the next time I channeled, which was, mm, a year and a half later.
Wow, wow. And, uh, do you channel regularly now with or without medicine? And if so, for what purpose do you sense that that's happening?
Yeah, so I can, when I initially started channeling, I was channeling my guides. There's 3 of them. The main one, her name was Axie. She was a feminine presence, and she's from where I'm from. And they were sent here with me to obviously watch over me and protect me, but also I was sent here for a specific mission, and I was not up until the experiences. I was not kind of evolving at a pace that they were comfortable with in order for me to start working on the things I was sent here to work on. And so that's why they showed up initially, and they were my guides. I was channeling my guides up until I haven't channeled my guides and since mm, late last year was the last time I channeled Axie. I don't channel her anymore. Now when I channel, I'm channeling my spirit family. There's 7 of them, my elders who are all shamans, and I channel them during ceremony to work on whichever clients I'm with. So initially, when I was speaking the light language and I was, when I was talking and I was going through the sessions with my practitioner who was helping me work through all of this um, experience, I'm so glad I had somebody there to help me kind of work through it because it's a challenging experience, especially like in you understand that part where you don't have control over your own body or that part where you're getting instruction and being told, like, I was being told every day, breathe, you need to breathe, you need to breathe. And what they were trying to do was get me to clear the channel so that the messages, so I could find out and get the message of what I was sent here to do so that I could go through that initiation ceremony with my elders and my spirit family to become a shaman here on earth. And I channeled them to do the work that I do now. And so that I do take medicine for during ceremony. I take medicine to perform that work. Um, but I don't need medicine to communicate with them or to ask them questions or my guides are with me all the time. And if I want to talk to them, I can talk to them at any time.
At what point did you begin to hear or sense like, okay, I'm called to do this work? I know you have kind of a quote unquote day job, but then you're investing so much of your life in serving other people. At what point did you sense I'm called to do this?
Yeah, it was actually less of a sense, and it was them telling me. It was a message, when they were telling me to breathe and, they wanted me to start taking care of this vessel. So, when I wasn't taking care of myself very well before I moved here to Texas, I'd gained a lot of weight. I'd gotten up to about 265 pounds, something like that. And, when I got down here, it was take care of this vessel. And so I needed to start eating better and conscious consumerism, right? What am I consuming with my body, with my skin, with my eyes, with my ears? We consume with all of our senses. We hear consumption and people just think it's food. But I started getting very particular around things I was consuming with my eyes, with my ears, that I was putting on my skin, that I was eating. I was working out. I was breathing every day. I was just clearing this vessel. And once the vessel got clear enough for the message to come through clearly, is when I was told what I was sent here to do. And I was told that I was here to serve others. And I'll be honest, it wasn't surprising. I've always wanted to help people. It's why I joined the military. I've always wanted to help people. I've always enjoyed protecting people, taking care of people, being there for people, making sure that nobody ever felt alone. Things like that always came pretty naturally to me. So it wasn't as much of a shock as it was me just needing to remember, which was kind of the big theme of all of this is me remembering uh,
Mhm.
who I am and what I was sent here to do.
Mhm. And so you started a business, a work, however you want to put it, called Hands of Erra. And one of the ways that you describe yourself is as an intergalactic shaman. So I'd love for you to describe both of those, those words you've chosen very, carefully. What does Hands of Era mean? What does it mean to be an intergalactic shaman?
Yeah, great question. So, Era is a planet in the Pleiadian star system, which is where I'm from. My guides, my spirit family, who I channel, all from the planet called Era in the Pleiadian star system. So that's where Hands of Era comes from. The hands part is when I perform my work, I actually do physically put my hands on people when I'm performing the work. So Hands of Era and why it's the Hamza hand is the logo. All of that is why it's called Hands of Era. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Intergalactic shaman.
That's right. Okay, so there's shamans here on Earth, and I've actually gone through the Foundation for Shamanic Studies that's here on Earth. I've gone to one of their courses. I've learned what shamanism is. I've taken some other coursework, and what shamans do here on Earth is different than what I do, largely speaking. And I say intergalactic shaman because my shamanism, I learned it from my spirit family, from the Pleiadians, and I come from a long line of them. And so, not just the work that I do, but why I'm doing it, who is helping me do it, all of that is not of this planet. So, I wanted to make sure that when I said shaman, that it was described in a manner that it's not like a shaman you would find in New Mexico or in tribes in other continents on the planet. That this was um, otherworldly stuff, and I wanted to make sure that that was part of the description.
Hmm. As this has become a major part of your life, I assume your family, your siblings know a bit about what you do now. Like, how do they take this in?
Not all of them. Some of them do now. Um, it's not something I ever reached out to anyone that I was close with at the time when it started and tried to force on them or said, "Hey, let me work on you." I just got very vocal about it. I posted it on my social media and that I was doing my breath work every day and that this thing started. And I just, since it started, I just assumed that the same thing that happened to me would happen to them. And the reason why I didn't find breathwork until I did is because my person wasn't ready. I needed to go through that 10 years of therapy and all those pills to finally get to a point to say, enough, I need to do something else. I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years or 7 years ago, if somebody had came to me and said, go do breathwork, I probably would have laughed at them, maybe even made fun of them. My person just wasn't in a place yet to be able to be open minded enough to be able to go and try some of this work. And so I just took the same approach with all the members of my family is I'm going to be very open about it. I'm not going to hide it, but they'll come to me when they're ready. And they've started to. My dad has come down and I performed a mushroom healing and shamanic healing ceremony on my father. I've
Wow.
done it. My mother, my twin brother has come down to Austin and had several sessions, and he is coming down again in a couple of weeks to do another one. So nobody in my family, I don't think, doesn't know that I do this, but
Mhm.
not all of them are ready. Not all of them have reached out, and that's okay. And if they never do, that's okay.
Sure, sure. Who are the types of people who do reach out for your support? And I know you primarily do your work in person in Austin. You do some work online, and then you have retreats as well. But what is the type of individual who's coming to you, and what are the challenges that they're generally facing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide range of people so far that I've worked on. Obviously, men and women. I've worked on people who are still have some sort of belief system connected to like the dogmatic type religion. Some who would call themselves atheists. But really, my work and what I want to do is for anyone who's suffering. And you know as well as anyone, David, that suffering comes in many forms. There's physical suffering, there's emotional suffering, there's spiritual suffering, there's mental suffering. There's a lot of forms of suffering. And Hands of Erra was created, and my work, I was sent here to end human suffering. In fact, during my initiation ceremony, it was something I had to repeat so many times I almost lost my voice was I have a desire to end human suffering. I have a desire to end human suffering. I just keep repeating that. And I think that's also what was part of my path and the suffering that I had to experience and then take myself through the process of healing that suffering. And I think that's something that's important. There's a very large spiritual community here in the Austin area. And oftentimes, what happens is somebody will have a spiritual experience and then they'll want to serve others. And while that's commendable, that's a very commendable thing to have a spiritual experience and then want to then go try to give that experience to other people. What I think is important for others to understand, or others when they're looking for a practitioner to go to, is you need to have someone who didn't just have a spiritual experience, but they are living the things that they are trying to teach or work with other people, that they need to be embodying that spiritual experience, and that not just having one or reading books. I think it's all of the above. It's you've had spiritual experiences, you read the books, but you also embody what it means to serve others and to truly show up authentically. And the only reason you are showing up is in true service. That's really where I have my feet dug in. Is it's not just about trying to make money helping people, right? I've worked on people for free. I truly experienced large levels of suffering as a human. And I know that almost every single person that I encounter, whether I'm driving, walking, what have you, they're suffering in some way, shape, or form. And I know that I had the ability to help them with that. And that's my desire. That's my goal. So I don't have a filter on my demographics list of anyone that can work with me. Anyone who's suffering in any way, shape, or form, I can help, and I hope I get an opportunity to.
There's one checkbox. Are you suffering? Yes or no?
Yeah.
No, you don't
And
need me.
everyone should
Okay.
answer yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah. And if the answer is no, you're probably just blind to how you're suffering. So someone comes to you, what are the ways that you can help them? It sounds like a ceremony that includes breath work, maybe some medicine as part of that. Is that the primary methodology that you use? If it is, walk us through what is that experience like?
Yeah, for the shamanic healing sessions, those do at this point have to be in person. I do virtual stuff. I right now I'm leading a monthly virtual breath work for some business and executive tech leaders, real estate folks that in the Austin area. Those are virtual. Those are every month. August we'll actually be setting up our first in-person event for that group here in Austin in my new space. So that's exciting. I'm excited to host some of those people in person. But for the shamanic healing sessions, those are a 4 to 6 hour experience. There is plant medicine involved. There's some work prior to for both myself and whoever is going to be a part of that ceremony. I've done group sessions at some of the retreats that we've had. I've done one-on-one. I've done, couples sometimes want to do this work together. I've done that as well. So I can lead and host virtual sessions that are breath work and meditation and help with some of the integration work, or just for anyone who's curious about trying breath work and meditation. But the shamanic healing sessions do have to be in person, and they'll either be here at my home in Austin, or at the site of the retreat if it's at a retreat, or if anyone's open and wants to bring me out to wherever they are, I'm open to traveling to do the work as well.
Mhm. What are the types of medicine that are used? What's the process of that 4 to 6 hours look like? I heard you say earlier that you, take medicine as well. I'm just curious about kind of the flow of it all.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we start with both parties, myself and the client will take the medicine. I will then lead them through a breath work and meditation session. When that is complete, then they will ideally, they will then rise, take more of the medicine, a second dose, and this is about 90 minutes later, put the headphones on with the music, lie back down, and really go inward. And that's when my work will start. That's when I'll tap in and start performing the shamanic healing. When my portion is done, I've had some people stay in with the headphones on, laid down for up to 4 hours. Some people rise faster than that. Some people stay down for a while. And after that, it's just post session integration. There's fresh fruit, there's cheese, there's structured water, we can play music, we can dance, we can go outside, we can, move our bodies a little bit. There's a lot we can do after that. But it's kind of flows however that person's feeling. We can sit and just talk and have some conscious conversation. I've had some clients who like to just sit and journal and write about their experience. So it's really up to them what that looks like, but that's generally what that flow looks like.
Are they ingesting what, like 2 or 3 grams of psilocybin? Is that they're taking a full dose?
Yeah, we usually want them to start with at least a 2-gram dose. I've found that that's a really nice spot for most people. I've had a
Mhm,
few clients that wanted to go up that have done mushrooms before and are kind of experienced in psilocybin that wanted to dose up from that, and that's perfectly fine. I usually like the first dose to be around 2 grams, and if they want to go up, that's when we do the second dose. Will be the bigger dose. But yeah, usually we start them off with 2 grams, and then that second dose is either about another 1.5 to 2, or like I said, I've had some clients that wanted to go up from there.
and how much are you ingesting, and why do you ingest?
Yeah, I usually do 2 grams with them at the start, and then if I need to dose again, I usually haven't had to, except at like the larger group settings at like the retreats where there's, I've had up to 12 people that I've needed to work on, and so I've dosed up again in those environments. Usually with just a one-on-one or a couple. I haven't necessarily needed to yet, but we'll see. Yeah, and it's more so to um, open the channel fully and for them to come down. And I'm the person you're talking to right now kind of takes a seat back in the waiting room when that work starts. My spirit family, and there's 7 of them. There's the big guy, and then there's 6 others. Depending on what that person needs in that moment, will depend on which one of them that I channel. And they actually come through and they are again taking over my body and performing this work, whether it be pulling suffering out of the body in whatever form it takes, or putting love and good things back in. Um, so I channel them and I take the medicine for that to complete. In fact, oftentimes after these ceremonies, my person isn't wholly aware of what actually happened. Most of the time, I have to ask others, "Hey, so what happened?"
Mhm,
Because it's my family I'm channeling that is there during the work, and the medicine keeps opens it up fully, keeps them engaged, allows them to do the work for as long as needed, and then all of that closes and ends when the ceremony is over.
mhm. And you're able to stay in a more of a outward state rather than going inward even with 2 grams. You're able to stay, like, connected and doing the work. Are you ever like, does it ever feel like, "Whoa, I'm getting pulled, like, more into your own interior world?" Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, not yet, and we've been doing it for, 9 months now of these
Mhm,
ceremonies, and that hasn't happened yet.
mhm,
Like I said, it's more of a when the shamanic healing actually starts, Robert Hudson is back in a waiting room somewhere.
mhm,
It's them, and they can see, and they know how to use the body. They've come down and had some very unique experience with some of my friends sometimes post ceremony, where they've come down and they haven't been in a human body in quite some time. So they come down and they use my body and they get to touch a dog or they get to feel the grass and things like that. And my Robert Hudson's consciousness is like back in the waiting room. So they know how to use the body. Um, and so I'm more of a vessel for this work.
mhm,
But yeah, that hasn't happened yet, and I don't anticipate that
mhm.
being the case.
And are your eyes, open that entire time, or are you finding that your eyes are opening and closing, like, through the different flow of the healing experience?
Yeah, they're closed the entire time. There's been a few instances in like a retreat setting where there's 12 people on the floor where the my body has, the vessel has to watch where it's stepping, where the eyes will
Mhm,
open very, very briefly, but
mhm,
99% of the time, eyes are completely closed. Yeah.
mhm. And what
Yeah.
are the types of healing experiences that people have had as you're working on them?
Yeah, all kind of physical, all the ones we've talked about. I've had physical results, emotional, mental, spiritual. Um, I think there's been some ones that have impacted me more. I've felt obviously working on my own father, my mother, and my twin
Mhm,
brother, working on them obviously, and helping some hearing the experiences that they've had. And I've got some of these testimonies on not just from my family, but from other people I've worked on the Instagram page, on my website. But obviously, working on my own father, my mom, my twin brother, those were very impactful experiences for me. Most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I had a gentleman who has been in chronic pain and has been bedridden this entire year for over 6 months, has been in bed in chronic pain, hasn't had a full night's rest, doesn't really eat. Came to me and was really suffering in a multitude of ways. Obviously, when you're in pain that long and you're kind of just withering away in bed, that can do things to you mentally, spiritually, things like that. And he came, we had a ceremony for him a couple of weeks ago. And the next day, I got a message from him and his wife. And it was the first time that he had slept through the night with no pain in over 6 months. And he's now walking around, leaving the house. They went out and ate at a restaurant last week. Just a completely different experience that he's having waking up every day. Um, it's beautiful. He says colors back. I still talk to him on a very regular basis. I'm actually looking forward to seeing him again here very soon. But that for me was um, very impactful just because I've been in pain before, not at his level, but I've been in pain. I've been, laying in bed after a heavy surgery and taking painkillers and just, at a small level, I understood the level of suffering that he was at. And to see that he's doing his breath work every day now and to see him up moving around and eating food and sleeping through the night and out of pain really is just, it's wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so powerful. One of the things I'm curious about, just because of my own experience with plant medicine and facilitating, for others, is like, how do you maintain a safe environment for individuals when you're kind of on the medicine as well? Um, like, how does that work for you?
Do you mean like a physically safe environment or just
Yeah,
energetically?
I guess all of the above. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
know I know when I'm on the medicine at 2 grams, I am, I am in. Uh,
yeah,
you know? And so, I mean, I can't imagine stumbling around trying to help somebody, in that moment. But how do you do
yeah.
that? How do you maintain that safe environment?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't. They do, and they're
Yeah.
here to just to. I'm just a vessel for them to help. And our the goal for this work is twofold. It's the desire to end human suffering and for people to believe again, so we can help people remember who they are and get people believing again. And so, um, I haven't had a single person come through and say anything other than they've never felt so held, so
Yeah.
safe,
Yeah.
and their goal is to give them love, help them stop suffering, and so that goal in and of itself, while they're using this vessel to perform that work,
Mhm.
um, it's just there's nothing to worry about. And you
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
that instantly, and it's something that all my clients have felt, they understand, and when they tell other people about this work, which they all have, it's a message that comes loud and clear,
Mhm.
from them. There's never been anything other than a safe, loving environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had family members or friends participate just by watching and seeing what happens to their loved one, or do you keep it super private, just kinda more one-on-one?
Yeah, no, actually, I've asked if others wanted to attend. In fact, that session I was just referencing, the gentleman who'd been in chronic pain all year, I invited his wife. I held this session at another person's home that they were comfortable with, a friend that they had that we have a mutual friend. So we held it over at their house. That couple, the gentleman, his wife, myself, and another person who I was performing the ceremony on, were all in the room and witness to the previous ceremony. Uh, Two of them were literal, just holding space and watching. The gentleman's wife was holding space and watching until there was a moment where my elder called her over and used her as a conduit to put some things into the gentleman. That was apparently very incredible to see. And there were, again, parties and witness to it. So, yeah, sometimes there's been just straight witnesses holding space, and I'm all for anyone who wants to come be a part of it and hold space for another loved one, a friend, a brother, what have you. I'm all for it. I think the more the merrier, honestly.
It's very powerful for those individuals. They're kind
Yes.
of,
Yeah.
"Whoa, this is really sacred
Yeah.
work." Yeah, amazing.
And it's the funny thing is that a bunch of people who don't know each other all describe a lot of the same old, like almost Aztec feeling, old, like large headdress. Really, when you think of the word shaman, those things, that the visuals they get and the things they see, and those who are help working on them. These people who have never met, never talked, what have you, are all describing some of the same experiences, which is just, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. What is your long-term vision for your work? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I hope that there comes a day where I can just do this all the time and help people all the time. I hope that the day comes where I get to do that. But being a part of being one of the practitioners that's a part of Nirvana, mind, body, and soul, we have a collective vision of we want to create a community of conscious people where conscious consumerism, we want to not have to leave the community for anything. If you need a dentist, we have a conscious dentist. If you need to do your laundry, if you need to go get food, if you need clothing, if you need, anything you need, you can get it from our community. And so we have mindset coaches right now. We have fitness people. We have a doctor. We have a shaman. We have this group. And as we expand and grow, I really, my only desire is to help people's suffering end and as many people that I can help stop suffering as possible. That's my desire every day that I wake up on this planet. My desire is to help as many people stop suffering as possible. And why that's such a deeply held desire for me is because I suffered for so long. My person
Mhm.
suffered for so long. I know what that's like. I know that energy you take out into the world. I know how it can negatively impact your family, your relationships, your job, how you show up in the world for yourself. I know how much of a negative impact that suffering can have, and I don't want that to be the case for anyone else. And
Mhm.
so that's really my only goal is I want to be able to help as many people as possible.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Robert, for what you're doing. Amazing. Where can people connect with you to schedule a session there in Austin or do things online, perhaps participate in a retreat that you have, or even bring you out to their location? What would be the best place
Yeah.
for them to follow your work?
So the two best places are going to be my website, which is handsofera.org. That's my website. From there, you can schedule anybody who's never worked with me has to schedule a 30-minute free consultation just for us to talk. That's going to be again, anybody who's never worked with me will have to schedule that 30-minute consult, and they can schedule that directly on my website. You also can find me on Instagram at Hands of Erra is the Instagram page. There's a link to my website from there. And then my personal Instagram is the Texas Shaman. And so they can connect with me in any of those three ways.
Wonderful. Robert, once again, thank you for how you are helping our world. I just love your vision, so clear, and I feel it being embodied from your life. So thank you so much. It's great to be with you today.
Thank you very much for your time, David. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.